that we don't have experience.
Yeah.
Then how do you get that experience? Just by trial
He
and error?
He says a lot. The way that we teach, that we're supposed to teach organizers, is by replicating the experience. But I don't see how you're supposed to replicate certain experiences.
It seems hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he says that a lot of like politicians and things like that, they lose sight of getting people involved through experience, like communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's the second chapter that we discuss is the communication chapter, and he says that communication only takes place if there's understanding of what you're trying to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that there's not understanding unless they've experienced,
Right.
because you don't understand something unless you've experienced it.
And that makes sense.
So he says that a lot of politicians lose sight of that because they're just talking to the people, not exactly engaging in communication.
Mm-hmm.
Which just kind of reminds me of Paulo Freire's idea of dialogue. That you learn through experience to communicate. That you have to like find a point of common experience or something.
Right.
I just think it's hard to experience certain things, like y'all said. Like, and when he says experiences, what does he mean? Like experiences in being an organizer, or experiences in just like everyday life, like different situations around you?
In order to talk to the person, you have to have some kind of similar experience with the people,
Right.
to actually understand what's going on. And I think it means if you're fighting for, or if you're working towards the betterment of a cause, you have to have some kind of experience within that cause.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just come out at it blindly.
Well, and it talks about that in my chapter in the beginning, in that you need to be able to relate to the people.
Yeah.
In order to gain their trust.
That reminds me, okay, because you know how normally, and like, I know at Target they do this, they start you at the floor level working, and then you become a supervisor, so you've had experience, like, knowing what they deal with. So I think a lot of big companies tend to do that, like, you work your way up. And do you think that's why?
My mom worked for a nursing home for like 15 years, and she started as a CNA, which is like it's not a very high, level.
Right.
And she's worked her way up to LVN, and then she was head nurse. And it was like, from what I hear throughout the whole company, is that the best nurses and the best workers that they have there have worked their way from the bottom, because
they understand.
And they know the needs of every level. They know what is expected and the criteria that they have to meet, and like how those people feel about certain rules and regulations that are implemented.
That's kind of how I feel about like every boss in a way should be like Undercover Boss. Have you seen that stupid show?
Yeah. Where they go and they take the place of a regular worker for a day.
Yeah, and they have no idea how hard it was to be like an everyday worker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because when you're at such a high level of power, everything is just on paper. It's just like, well, they're doing this and that.
And they're making decisions, or for the lower people in the company, they have no idea like if that's the right decision or not, because they haven't lived that.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's how it should be in a lot of jobs. Like, you should work your way up.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, but we have to be realistic, and a lot of the times it's just who you know.
Right.
It's who you know, depends where you're
that's
at.
true.
Well, let's look at it a little bit bigger. I mean, let's look at it on a political level. Like we want a president who hasn't been, I guess, served like with a silver spoon or anything like that. Like we want a president who's been there, who's kind of like suffered with us, and who understands these issues inside and out through experience.
That's why they have the age limit on the presidency.
Yeah, 35.
So that they can experience life. That makes sense. Why would they would do that? But at the same time, if you think about it, most of our presidents have come from privileged families.
Yeah.
So how can
Not Obama.
But how can they relate and make help make decisions for?
But they work their way up. They start, going to law school.
But do they all really?
Be a senator or like a governor. Like I feel like.
But in order to be nominated as a candidate, what exactly does that entail? I think it just right now it's just who you know.
That money.
No, I still believe everyone starts from somewhere. Like I don't think you're just handed president. Like we would.
Well, you can't be handed president.
Yeah, we wouldn't elect a president if they didn't have experience or.
But I think that it does have a big how do I explain it? The whole. Our options are limited in that way of how you're nominated depends on who you know. because there could be wonderful leaders out there that are just not in privileged families.
Mhm.
No one's gonna hear about them because
Yeah.
you know.
See, now we're talking about leaders instead of organizers. So
Okay, well
is
then
the president considered?
that goes to our question whether or not the president is a leader or organizer.
Mhm.
You were saying it was all the people behind the scenes
I think
that
it
are the
is.
organizer, because you
Or-
said the organizer is the ones that like
Give the
give
power.
power to the people.
Yeah. That's what I. And then the leader is the person who takes the power for themselves. But how much power does the president really
Yeah,
have?
does the president really take power off for themselves?
No.
That's
not
the
at
people
all.
behind.
Well, I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
mostly
just-
like senators and the House of Representatives. And
So
stuff
then we
like
have
that.
a. So then we have a group of leaders, and then the president is the organizer of these group of leaders.
Well, he's the one who establishes who gets what power. Doesn't he? Doesn't he
Well,
elect the
it's
Speaker of the House and
pre-established. It's
stuff
been
like that?
all everything that we can and are able to do, like what certain the laws, right, for what senators can do. It's been pre-established, right?
Mhm.
So where does that exactly leave the president? He has his own. He doesn't really have control of what the other senators do. Everyone's like their own.
Then I feel like this is a flaw in the political system. Maybe we should focus on not having so many leaders rather than organizers.
Well, maybe we're just missing the category. Maybe like we're focusing on two extremes where like we're either a leader or an
Or an
organizer.
organizer.
Maybe there's something in between that we're
Well,
just not
maybe
seeing.
it's because it has to be on a smaller scale because you can't just have one organizer
Is that where the
for this
political-
whole national for this
Do you
whole
think that's where the
nation.
political parties come in though? Because let's see, political parties are the ones that raise up the issues that need to be discussed and what they're fighting for, right?
Okay, and that would meet the curiosity aspect of
Mhm.
what a potential
And
organizer.
they have a blurred vision, like an ideal goal they're trying to reach for.
It sounds like for me you're describing an interest group, like
Yeah.
like
it's
the
kind of
NRA or
interesting.
something like that, because their issue is to exercise the full rights of the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, see,
And then
and
maybe-
a political party can't have humor, like a sense of humor, like
Oh, okay.
'Cause-
I'm like, what? Why does
You
it
know
have to do
what
They
anything?
get so offended.
they do. They get offended by everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
they
maybe
don't.
we can't have maybe you can't have organization at a larger scale. Maybe you can only have it at smaller scales.
Maybe.
I don't know, but what's the next step up from being part of a group that's been organized? What's the next step? Like, are you just gonna always be a group?
Organizing with other.
Well, see, the organizers are never they're never content with what is going on. They're always questioning. So there's always going to be an issue for an organizer to get people together for. You know what I mean?
So there is no end. So is there any ideal?
Well, that's his
Is
idea.
there any ideal goal? I mean, you said there's an ideal goal they're searching for, but is there any end? Like, is there any resolution these organizers are going to have? Are they just always going to be questioning?
Well,
always gonna be
they,
trying to communicate.
It doesn't exactly say that they have a goal in mind. They say they find goal in creation of power for others to use.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, organizers find something and they organize to give power for others to use so that they can change it.
Right.
So they're constantly going to be doing something because it's not that they have a certain goal to meet. In general, they have this goal of giving people power so that they can utilize it.
Okay,
Um,
that makes sense.
but yeah, the communication. He says that there has to be a different approach to teaching this whole organizing because the approach that's taken now, he says, is to like out of the book. There's no experience involved, and it's not really teaching anyone anything.
Mhm.
Is it just like is it kind of like a baking of education where you're just instilling
Yeah, it's kind
ideas
of like
and
banking of
values?
education, where they're not really experiencing anything and they really don't know what it is that they're practicing.
Mhm. I just kind of taught it. And that's it.
That's how I feel about college. We just taught stuff and that's it.
Which I don't know. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why we do end up electing presidents like we do. Because I mean, they can read everything about like poverty and everything like that, but I mean, if you don't experience it, then it's hard for them to fix it. And maybe that's an underlying problem that we face that we just don't realize.
That's a good point because they have no basis on
Maybe it's because they have an idea of what it's like to be wealthy, and America's trying to strive for the wealthy.
and maybe that's why our system kind of not caters to the wealthy, but leans more towards